Welcome, children of God, loved and saved by Jesus. This is the Christ for Disciples podcast, and this is Pastor Paul Steinberg, first discipled by my parents, and now busy discipling my kids and 5,000 kids around my city. And every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we take 10 minutes to disciple ourselves so we can better disciple the kids God has, fittingly, perfectly, ideally, exactly put into our ministry sphere. We're looking at Jesus noticing a widow's giving from Mark chapter 12. Who is the most generous person that you know? Not someone you know of, but someone that you've met, that you're aware of their generosity. Who is that person? And is that person lifted you up in how you give? I met a guy, and I was introduced to him as Mr. Jolly Good, because that's a soda brand that I actually grew up with here in Wisconsin. And he was the founder of it, a guy named Bruce Creer. And he was not generous, not at first. And I mentioned him earlier in this week's podcast, but I got to hear his story. And he was one who was a business guy, was good at making money, and he made lots of money. And he kept that money. And somehow he got connected to St. Marcus Lutheran School. And of course, he owns a Jolly Good soda spot. So you think, well, you got all this soda. Would you be interested in donating some soda for some kids going on a trip to the south? They're taking a bus trip. Sure, it would be great to have some soda that you could donate. And he was asked to give it. And he hesitated and he balked. Come on, at least maybe they should pay the wholesale price. But he donated several cases of soda, and that was it. And he was feeling pretty generous about that, he said. But then when he came back, he got a chance to talk to the kids, got a chance to experience them. And over the course of a couple years, between the kids and the people at the school and different Christian friends he had, he became a Christian. Also, about that same time, he discovered he was very sick and he was dying from cancer. The Holy Spirit used all this to make it work. And in a switch, he became just about the most generous person around, who had a lot to give, but he gave it all. He wanted to give it all. That's one wealthy example. And then I've got a poor example. A lady who I was visiting every month as a homebound individual, and she was not very wealthy at all. Her house was just falling apart, and I'd go and visit, and it never smelled too great. And she had a kind of a stuttering problem, really hard to communicate with her, but she was such a good hostess. Not in, exterior, not judging just, how good it was, but based upon what she was able to do with her health and her situation. She had no money. And when I would come, she'd always try to set out some treats for me, always try to have something. One time I came to the door and she had a birthday cake set out. It was actually, the day before my birthday. And I said, "Oh," and I was all excited because I thought she had set that up because it was my birthday coming up. Somehow she knew, and I thought it was an honor to me, but in reality, it was her birthday that day. And she thought I had decided to visit her because it was her birthday, but I didn't notice. I didn't pay attention. And she had all kinds of food and stuff, and she didn't have anything, but yet she went through all this effort. And she told me that she made a birthday cake because otherwise she wouldn't have anybody to eat her birthday cake with. And I felt, again, really, really selfish and self-focused about thinking the cake was for me. But she gave everything. She had nothing. She always was so generous to me, and she would give offerings for me to bring to church, and she had nothing. Jesus, he spied somebody who was generous, and he wanted to make sure that people noticed. It says in verse 43 of Mark chapter 12, calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more into the treasury than all the others." So Jesus saw this. He didn't just whisper, but it says he called his disciples. I got to teach you something. That's generosity. Not how big, not the Pharisee and Sadducee style, where you make note of it, but just with her heart she did it because she had to. So first thing I want us to notice, we have to sees all teachable moments and everything. As an instructor, as a parent, when you got an example, here's something went wrong, something broke, something happened, something great occurred, big news hit, you got to seize the opportunity. You got to teach them. And Jesus, this lady, boom. Let me tell you something. You know this lady? You're really surprised. You can't believe this. But she gave more than everybody else. Before all these wealthy people, everybody else was going chain to chain with the big pile of cash and coins, big drachmas and denarii, whatever they were throwing in there of the temple money, and she takes a couple of pennies. Ding, ding. You could probably barely hear it, right? But Jesus sees the teachable moment. And the point was that the real bigness of giving is all about the why. Not how much, but how come? Not how much. Why for? Not how much. It's what are you doing? Is it absolutely beautiful? And when you have a generous example, that's when you want to highlight it and show it to your kids and have them make sure they notice it and they know what's going on. For me, I see my mom right now in her 70s, and she doesn't have any money, but she's always trying to give stuff to me. Always trying not to get clear junk out of her house, but she wants to help out with me getting a treadmill some years back. She said, well, I'll spot you the money. She's always given stuff to my kids, and she's just super generous of both, her time and whatever she's got. She's always giving it away, and what a great thing for me to share with my kids. They see it, but for me to have that conversation with them, and do you notice Grandma what she does? Like, oh yeah, she doesn't have that much money. She doesn't make as much money as you do now. You make more money than she does, but isn't it funny how she still finds a way to give more to you than you could ever give to her? She's just always giving with everything that she has. I have a son up that went up north to spend the weekend with her, and he will have a great time because my mom will give of her time and her talent and her expertise, and they'll do really good things, and she'll give and give and give. And for me to highlight that is just a real important deal. Or even, publicly, when it comes to gifts and works of the church, to notice these lead bigger gifts, but to highlight it, and to highlight especially when people, are giving out of, I guess, lack or poverty, of not having enough. Jesus, he highlighted this lady for us, but he highlighted other people as examples. Great people to follow, like the Syrophoenician woman who was persistent in faith. Highlight those people. We need to tell the stories, not just the stories of what Jesus shared, but the current peers, the people that people know. Be like them, be open, and bold it up, because the greatest ever was Jesus. He was absolutely perfect, and he did it in our place, and that's our comfort. We may never be able to be like the most generous people we've met, and in this life we'll never be like Jesus. But in eternity, God will see us as if we did everything that Jesus did. We're the benefactors of the most generous gift ever. Again, this lady put in more than everyone else around there, but not more than Jesus. This lady didn't grab herself and throw herself in the flutes, but Jesus took his very self, and as the high priest, took himself and threw him into the ashes to be burned up and sacrificed for us. Thanks for taking 600 seconds so Christ doesn't take second in your life. Be blessed.